Thursday on this beautiful fall Thursday. Thanks for being here. We'll start with a couple of announcements. Next week, I'll offer you a Canvas discussion makeup time. It will open on Monday at noon, and then you have until Sunday to submit any Canvas discussions. I'll reopen all of them, and then they'll all close again on Sunday at 11:59 p.m. So make note of this if this is something that you need the opportunity to do that. So that's there. Next week's journal assignment is to create a concept map. So you're going to be working on the concept map. You're going to tape 3 pieces of blank paper together, or upcycled, reused paper. If they have printing on one side, you can use the backs and tape them together. And you're going to use that, creating a concept map of ideas and concepts as you go through chapter 5 of the book. This is going to look more like what yours is like. So drawing lines, creating connections in between there, and then your journal will ask you some questions about what you created. So as you're doing this, I encourage you to use all of your equipment, connecting all of your powers, your heart, your gut, your brain. Use that vagus nerve and connect this. It can be as colorful as you choose, whatever it is that helps you to see and make connections. So that's for next week's journal. Where we are today is here. We are going to be talking about the blue of the blue planet. This photo was taken by William Anders in 1968, excuse me. It's called Earthrise, subtitled The Blue Planet. So looking at Earth from the moon, this is what he was able to see and capture. So in our planet's first 500 million years or so, the waters were not salty, right? But as torrential rains fell on our planet and all of the submerged land masses eroded over that time, then the wind and the ice and the rain and the surf and that continental crust started to erode, which freed the minerals and salts and flowed into the sea. And then when the seawater evaporated, it left behind those salts. And so now today our seas are still salty, right? The ocean is this hybrid brew. I like that phrase, the hybrid brew. It feels very fall kind of. Partly atmospheric and partly terrestrial in its composition. The ocean is a great vessel where elements come together. So we're going to be talking today about the ocean. So for coming to presence today, I'd like you to focus in, as usual, on your breath, that great central part of who we are, with your feet flat on the floor, and just noticing how the ebb and flow of your breath is like the ebb and flow of the ocean, the in and the out, these steady rhythms of our lives that play in the background. But when we bring attention to them, it helps us to feel more centered, more alive. At least that's how I feel at the beach, watching the ocean go in and out and thinking about all of those deep connections, the rhythm. So I'd like you to reflect on, what is your relationship with the ocean? How do you feel about the ocean? So take a moment to yourself and then talk to your neighbor about your relationship with your ocean. So who would like to speak about your relationship with the ocean?
Hello, hello. Can everybody hear me? Yeah, all right, bet. My relationship with the ocean, I say I enjoyed a lot. Because there was a point in my junior year where I went to school in the Bahamas and I had to do a 4 mile swim in open ocean, and I thought I was gonna die. But then like I got out safely, and then I realized like, wow, it's not too bad. It's a little salty, but it's not the worst in the world. And then like I feel like I've always been more like a water guy. Like after that, like I'd rather go like swimming and hiking or something like that. So like I would say like I get some type of connection with it in some sense.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
for
All
sure.
right.
4 miles in the ocean, I would have felt the same.
I love the ocean. I live in Florida, so I'm constantly at the beach. But it is scary that we only know 5% of the ocean. I'm pretty sure it's 5%,
It is, yeah.
which why don't we know more? I don't know why we haven't explored it. I mean, we know so much about space and medicine and things like that. Why haven't we explored more of the ocean?
It is so vast, right? There's so much of it to explore. 99% of the planet's habitat is in the ocean. So 1% on land, right? And then 99% of habitat is in the ocean. So as we think about the layers and the depths and this just the space, so it's like all the different dimensions of the ocean. So yeah, 5% has been explored. That's pretty incredible. And I'm glad that you get to hang out there. That's cool. Who else would like to speak about the ocean?
So I grew up in San Diego and I've lived next to the beach like my entire life. And so like it just like it really brings me like a sense of calm and like home, like just seeing like photos of the beach, like that photo like just reminds me of like the endless birthday parties I've had at the beach or like going like to tan with my friends or like going to like play in the waves. Like the ocean's always just brought me a sense of like calm and like a sense of home because like I've lived 5 minutes away from it my entire life. So it's always just been like a very like big connection for me.
Sweet. Thank you. Cool existence. Yeah.
Anytime that cause I go to the beach every summer, I go to Cape May with my family, and pretty much every night I will take myself to the beach and just like walk along the shoreline. And it's just like really calming after a long day of like being down at the shore. So I associate the ocean with like being a very calm presence, a nice
Mhm.
relaxing presence in my life. If that makes sense.
Sweet. Definitely makes sense. Yeah. If it makes sense to you. Yeah. Here's one more.
So I'm someone who can like be very anxious at times and just overthink. So I just like go to the beach and just I think the me knowing that we don't really know what's in the ocean is like kind of like okay, like I just don't want to know right now because if I did, I would not be on that beach. You would not catch me there. That's just it would not be a thing. But yeah, I just think it calms me just knowing that I just don't know. Like, yeah.
Interesting. The not knowing is comfortable, is calming. That's beautiful. So our relationship with the ocean, we all have it, whether you've been there or not, right? We're taking in this cycle of the ocean. So we're going to look back in time for a moment to the Polynesian sailors. These are the people that discovered islands, right? They were on the mainland of the continents, and then they had a sense, they figured out that there were more island spaces, more land masses out there. And the way that that happened was that are able to read a lot of the signs that the ocean provides. So from a very young age, at the first age that they can sit up, these Polynesian sailors were set in tide pools and understanding the ebb and the flow of the waves, the strength, the direction, all of those things gave them the ability to read water and decipher these patterns of swells. And so then they used this to navigate in order to know the world. So thousands of miles were traversed on boats like this, right? Without the aid of sextants or compasses, they were able to figure out where they were going, traveling to small uninhabited islands, using wayfinding techniques passed on from generation to generation. So if we think about the Hawaiian Islands, they're so far out there, and yet people took these boats out. They could read the currents. They would read the activity of the birds. Which way are the birds flying? Where are they going? Where did they come from? Which way are the clouds moving? It could tell them a lot about what's happening with the land masses. And then the currents, the refraction patterns of the waves. They would be able to tell these from long distances away. And so this idea of using the sun and the currents to find spaces, this sort of deep inner knowing of people and their connection with the oceans, body-based intelligence. So it sounds like from some of your stories that there is really that sort of connection for you as well. And even for lots of you, I imagine, that didn't speak, that this connection with the ocean feels deeper almost than words can convey, that it brings about a peace, or it brings about a calm, it brings about the questions of knowing and not knowing, it brings about a sense of home. And so that is a very deep body-based intelligence, connection to the ocean. Here's a modern story of a woman with a deep knowing of the ocean, Dr. Sylvia Earle. She is National Geographic's oceanographer. She just turned 90 a month ago. Her honoring title that they've offered to her is Her Deepness, Sylvia Earle. She spoke about, well, it was in 2020, I got to hear her here on campus, and she talked about this love of the ocean. She has been in all kinds of submersibles. She has been down in the ocean. She has discovered things about the ocean never known before. She's been studying it for almost 70 years, her connection with the ocean. So I'm going to refer to her a few times through class, but this quote, even if you never have the chance to see or touch the ocean touches you with every breath you take, every drop of water you drink, and every bite of food you consume. I love the way that she brings her understanding and connection so that we also get that opportunity for connection. She's passionate and she's compassionate, and she too has this intelligence, this innate intelligence of the ocean. I've linked a TED Talk for you to check out if you so choose. It's in the week module 7, the Sylvia Earle TED Talk is there for you. So this is the land map that most of us picture, and it's the land-centric version. But when we look at it from this way, right, thinking about all of that blue and how we've labeled it, you know, the Pacific Ocean, the Indian Ocean over here, the South Atlantic, the North Atlantic, makes it seem like it's all separate. But when we really look and focus on the blue, we can see that it's all connected. There are vast amounts of space, particularly this Pacific, what we've labeled as the Pacific Ocean. And we're going to spend a little bit of time thinking specifically about this space. About 71% of the Earth's surface is covered with water, and the oceans hold about 96% of all the Earth's water. Of course, water also exists in clouds and rivers and streams, the fresh water. But because of the depths, like we just said, there is so much of the Earth's habitats that are there in the ocean, things that scuba divers can see down in those depths, this white-tipped reef shark, or this pair of eagle rays. These are photos from a high school friend of mine that learned to dive in Hawaii when he lived there for several years. And so it turns out that when we enter the world of the water in this way, we do encounter some problems. There's some level where that becomes that we are separated, right? The average scuba diver becomes incapacitated at about 250 feet. We can only go down so far before the pressure builds up inside our bodies. So the animals that are living deeper than that have different adaptations that help them to survive. And we can also deepen our explorations with machinery, either submersibles like this that can go down to that 250 feet level, or submersibles like this where people are inside and going down even deeper. So once we get down there, there's all kinds of life, right? So in this space, there's all kinds of things that are pretty amazing. Abby, could you start this video for me? Thank you. So crazy cool. So crazy cool. It's so dark down there, right? How do these things adapt their own ways of seeing and being, communicating, attracting mates? By the time you get down to 500 feet even, there is no light, complete darkness, and the pressure is enormous. And these creatures are thriving, right? They don't have the air inside their bodies. They don't have swim bladders. They've solved the pressure problem that we have and other fish have. And so they are able to survive down there. Fish, crabs, limpets, octopus, worms, clams, some of those things found down there in the depths. So for about 4.5 billion years, the oceans defined the earth. All of the life in the ocean, from the microbes to the phytoplankton and the fish and the whales, it's like an orchestra playing this harmony. It's the harmonizing unit of our planet. The oceans have been the great stabilizing factor of nature for a long time. And now humans are defining the ocean. And unfortunately, we are creating discord rather than living in harmony. So we're going to talk about some of those places of disconnect. So we have these cold currents and warm currents. These are the natural currents of the ocean. They're called gyres. Gyres, when they circle the air currents, when it gets warm here at the equator, and then it moves up, it cools down up in the Arctic, and then it moves along the coastline. So if you've been in the ocean in California, you know that this is really cold. The ocean on this side is pretty chilly. And so compared to that of the north, to the eastern side that's coming up from the equator. And so there are these different currents that make a difference. They also are transporting precipitation. So it changes our weather patterns related to what's happening with our ocean currents. So that is happening. These cycles are doing other things as well. So what's happened is that it's created, this is there between our western coast and over here, Japan. So in that particular gyre of movement, it has created these cyclones, the patterns of water of trash. So the patch was discovered in 1997 by Charles Moore, this guy. And what he discovered was he was sailing through a mishmash of floating plastic bottles and other debris on his way home to Los Angeles. So the area in the center of the gyre seems to be very calm here, but then on the outer edges, when the currents are carrying things around, it means that all that trash gets collected. These plastic bottles, plastics of all kinds, as well as discarded fishing gear and other stuff gets stuck in these garbage patches. So microplastics make up a bunch of this, about 94%, which is about 1.8 trillion pieces of plastic in the patch. And this isn't the only marine vortex, right? These are happening in all of the ones around the oceans, but then also in smaller ones, like in the North Sea, are developing these garbage patches. The garbage patch here is just the biggest. It happens to be about the size of Texas. So just a note, we'll talk more about plastic as we move on, but nearly every molecule of plastic that has been created is still here on Earth. Plastic never goes away. It just gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And it's estimated that by 2050, there will be more weight of plastic in the ocean than fish in the ocean. So a note, and we'll notice this is because our plastic production has increasingly, it's increasing exponentially. So in 1950, less than 2 tons of plastic was made. And now here's where we are right now. I found that last year in 2024, they estimate somewhere between 420 and 440 billion tons of plastic, million tons was produced. And so that's expected to just continue to rise. It's also important to note that 91% of all plastic is not recycled. So when we consider what's happening to all that plastic, where it's going, this is an example. This is the island of Munkar, on the beach at Munkar on the island of Java. 400-yard wide, mile-long stretch of sand that was feet deep in plastics. Bulldozers had cleared it away and buried some of it 2 years ago, but every tide since then continued to bring up more and more plastic. And so now it's affecting the health of the people. It's getting trapped in the motors of their boats, and they aren't able to go out fishing. So it's affecting the village itself. So how many of you have been to beaches where you've noticed plastics? Yeah, okay. I was in Galveston, Texas a number of years ago, and about every 100 yards there was a trash container for plastic, people really making an effort to clean it up, or at least they were giving people the option to clean up and put their plastics in there, as well as other trash. I noticed that of all the people walking on the beach, I was the only one that was picking things up and putting it in. And I don't know what the story is for that beach or other beaches around. And so it's an interesting way of being. So if the beaches are invaded with these plastics and the ocean itself is invaded with plastics, then how is that affecting other things? So we're going to take in this short video also, and I encourage you, it's a hard video to watch, but I encourage you to not look away and really take in the possibilities of what's happening here. Thanks, Abby.
We have the courage to face the realities of our time and allow ourselves to feel deeply enough that it transforms us and our future. Come with me on a journey through the eye of beauty. Across an ocean of grief. And beyond.
The plastic in the ocean releases a sulfuric scent, which is what the same smell released by algae when it's eaten by krill, which is a favorite food of seabirds. So if it smells like food and it's there in the ocean, then must be food, right? So an estimated 90% of seabirds ultimately swallow plastic. Not all of them perish, but at some point are consuming it. So especially these birds, like these albatross that have a very keen sense of smell, they call them tube-nosed seabirds. They use to hunt, and they are the ones that are most severely affected by plastic ingestion. So this shearwater is the species of bird there. 400 pieces of plastic found in this one bird. All different kinds of things, small and large, that's just been broken up by the ocean currents. Also happens in whales. This beached whale was found with 400 pounds of plastic in his stomach. So what is certain is that calls for reduced in plastic will grow louder and the industry will resist. As we saw the graph, they expect that we'll just continue producing more and more plastic. But this isn't the only challenge that the ocean realm is facing. We have other challenges as well. So we have long line fishing is a strategy where these long lines can go out, these long lines that look like they end up looking like this in the ocean. It's hard to document with real photography to see what's going on because the long lines can be somewhere between a mile long and 50 miles long. 50 miles of fish hooks on that line catching everything, catching anything that bites on them, right? And then there's another kind of fishing, trawling on the ocean floor, happens on the continental shelf. And now super trawlers are a thing where you can fit 13 jumbo jets into the nets that they drag beneath them. So again, not seeing what they're catching. Fishing and shipping vessels have multiplied the levels of low frequency noise in the ocean by 32 times. So as these ships pass, the humpback whales stop singing, orcas stop foraging, and right whales become stressed. Crabs stop feeding, cuttlefish change colors, damselfish are more easily caught. If the sound around us increased by 32-fold, then OSHA would come in and say we need to wear earplugs. But there isn't anyone protecting the ocean in that way. So not only are the nets a problem, because when they drag themselves, these are photos from space. You can see where the ocean trawlers have dragged their nets along the bottom. It creates a just devastation in its wake. So before it can be teeming with life, and then after there can be completely nothing. National Geographic has just released a really interesting and sad video of this happening, the first documented footage of ocean trawling, and you can watch the action. And so I encourage you, I did link that as well in our week 7 options for you to check out. What happens after a bottom trawler drags along the ocean floor? Les Watling of the University of Hawaii says, bottom trawling is the most destructive of any actions that humans conduct in the ocean. So what's it really doing? It's searching for fish, right? It's getting the fish and what's being asked for by people to eat. So the idea that we've gone from a person fishing or 2 people fishing with a net and making a much less personal experience in order to feed the masses of people who are eating seafood, thinking about the fact that here in central Pennsylvania, any day, I can order shrimp or whitefish of lots of kinds. I can order mahi-mahi. I can order all of these things and have it delivered to my table. But we don't have shrimp here in Pennsylvania. How are they getting here? How are they getting to my plate? When I order salmon, where does it come from? How is it provided to be there for me? So these nets, because it's such an impersonal way of fishing, they're catching all kinds of stuff. This is called bycatch. So when they dump out those giant nets full of all the things, all the different creatures that are in that pile of stuff, sometimes it can be sea turtles and sometimes it can be dolphins. If a baby dolphin is caught in the net, the mother won't leave its side and they will drown together because they aren't coming up for air. Sylvia Earle said that 90% of the big fish in our ocean are gone. We can be the saviors of humankind. She says this, I say humankind because life will go on without us or with us. It did before and it can after. It just won't be the same assemblage of life. We're already altering the pieces of the puzzle. We have lost a lot of species due to our actions. When we destroy a coral reef, we lose its residents, all the unique species that evolved there and nowhere else in the universe. For example, some species of lizardfish have a very limited range, or shrimp-like creatures called stomatopods have unique eyes that see a much broader spectrum of light than the human eyes can. So we destroy the reef and we lose that piece of the puzzle. We'll never have a complete picture again. So the idea that it's disconnect, that we've gone to this crazy scale of affecting the ocean in these ways, thinking about the ocean as a resource, creates this idea of separation, absence of the appreciation for all the connections, and taking out whatever we need. Everything is dependent on the balance of everything else. So species extinctions like this since 1800 are also on that exponential curve when things are compounding faster. So we talked about birds in the last class, and there are bird species that have been on the decline. There are bird species that are extinct. And so how is it that we are making choices and paying attention to these different species? It can be a very challenging situation. So birds, ocean animals, amphibians, reptiles, mammals, fish, insects, things we don't even know on the planet right now. So when we take them in, right, when we really look at individuals, whether you're thinking about the birds, the albatross in the video, the birds that Doug talked about on Tuesday. So they're each individuals. When you look at these fish, they're all different. The different patterns of wavy blue lines, none of them are the same. They are all individuals. So they know their places and spaces. This is true of the birds that are migrating to those places that grow coffee, like we talked about, the coffee farms in Costa Rica. Those birds know their places and spaces. They know to go there, and then they know to come back. But if the spaces change, or if the threats changed, then it's a struggle for them to figure out new ways of being. They just new patterns. So think about even just moving here to a new place, figuring out where the grocery store is, figuring out where the bus stop is, figuring out how to connect with people here. So animals are like that too. They have their routines, they have their patterns, they have their homes and communities. They are not commodities. They are not big business. Sylvia Earle, once again, she says, a lot of people excuse their bad behavior toward fish by saying, oh, they don't feel pain. Well, that's not true. That's nonsense because they have all the same equipment, the same nervous system that we do. So as we see these creatures with new eyes, as we see the ocean realm with all the possibility, all these things, all this bad news part, I'd like you to talk to your neighbor about what you are thinking and feeling at this point. Who would like to speak to this? Love to hear from two people.
For me personally, it just makes me feel like awful because I know that like I have probably contributed to pollution and probably almost everyone in this room has, but like it just makes me think about like society and the world has kind of made it like almost impossible not to. Like not saying you couldn't just like never use plastic again, but there are like so many other ways that it's just like almost it's like hard not to be a part of the problem. So I just think that's like, and it's like such a huge problem. I don't know, like how it just made me think of like how could we actually solve this? But
Yeah,
I don't know.
thank you. You do know. It's okay. Yes, good. Yeah, it's so big, right? It feels so overwhelming. Logan, there's somebody up front here if you would.
So I'm thinking about when this was, I guess you'd say more serious than it is right now, even though it should be very serious. But um, there was a time during science class, and my teacher at the time was just very adamant about us recycling, us putting stuff away where they need to be, not throwing trash out the window, the whole nine. And I feel that it's really crazy that it's gotten to the point that it's at now. I saw recently that the ozone just got rebuilt, finally. So imagine that was what, maybe sixth, seventh grade. I'm now 20, turning 21. And you just told me almost 90% of bigger species aren't, I guess you could say, habit anymore. Not habit,
Gone.
but like,
Yeah.
yeah, there's not as many of them anymore. So I just think it's crazy.
It is crazy. And so what you just said about the ozone, right, that took a big effort of getting rid of chlorofluorocarbons that we knew were causing that kind of problem, and how long it does take for the efforts to move forward of those. And that was a lot of people working on that together, and then people doing it and paying attention. And so it's not impossible, right? These things are possible to attack the problem, but it does take a whole bunch of people who are caring about it. So back to the beginning of class, thinking about the number of you that spoke to how much you care about, even love the ocean, right? I love the ocean. I love sitting next to the ocean. I love listening to it. I love smelling it. I love thinking about what's in there, the magic of the ocean, the unknown of the ocean. And so what I'd like to do is think about a definition for love. What happens when I love something? This is a definition by James T. Farrell of St. Olaf College. Love, he defines it this way. You want to be physically near it. So those of you who go to the ocean every summer, or when you go home, for those of you who live close to the ocean, you want to be close to it. And right now we're only using the ocean as an example. So this definition of love can apply to just about anything. It could apply to people, it could apply to places, it could apply to trees, it could, whatever it is that you love, you want to be physically near it. You want the best for it all the time. So sending good thoughts to those things that you love, those people that you love. Fear its loss and grieve for its injuries. So what happens if it gets to the point where something that you love is not doing well? Like there's a lot of emotion around that. You want to know everything about it, its story, its moods, and what it looks like by moonlight. You want to protect it fiercely and are helpless to do otherwise. So think back to Doug and the birds. Doug is going to do everything that he can to save birds. He is going to be a vegetarian. He's going to drink healthy coffee. He's going to plant good plants in his garden for birds. He is going to not use pesticides and herbicides. He's not going to use plastic water bottles or any other plastic. He is not. So he is being very careful with his life to protect birds. And I want to be my best for it. So I want to make good choices. I want to choose the way that will help me to support those things that I love, those people that I love, those places that I love, the ocean that I love. So what does it look like for us to be the best for the oceans? We don't deliberately try to hurt the ocean, right? Those of us in this room, you don't dump poisons in the ocean. You're not deliberately trying to hurt it. But think about how many hands it takes to build a house or building or city. Many hearts and hands go into that process. It's a journey of teamwork and collaboration, and that's what it has to be. The ozone is a great example. So how can we do that for the ocean, right? I think you can hit play on this if you would, Abby. I think it's embedded. Nope. Okay. So this is a really short video of people doing a cleanup at an ocean. Trash Hero is an organization that now works all over the world to clean up beaches, to clean up those places that are affecting the watery parts of our world. The idea is of capacity, that we have to do this stuff together. Laulima is a concept, a Hawaiian concept, that means when we share experiences, we grow stronger together. The idea of many hands make light work. So we're going to be celebrating the fact that we can work together with other people who care about the things that we care about. The power of making change is becoming aware and then choosing to act and then joining with others to make that action come to life. So I'll leave you with this note. I hope that you too can celebrate your interdependence with others. Thank you very much. I hope that you have a beautiful day. Yeah.
Morgan's group wants to get our attendance taken.
Okay, good.